I never really had like a plan or really big aspirations. And it took me a while to figure that out, really, until I came to Nourish. And so it was always like, okay, what's this next job? I sort of didn't dream big enough.
Hello, and thank you for joining us today on the Gentle Art of Crushing It show, where we focus on learning and sharing with our listeners all there is to know about how to create success in our lives. This show stands on the shoulders of giants. Our mission is to empower and inspire our listeners to create the life of their dreams whilst having a blast in the process. Let's celebrate life together. Welcome to the show.
Okay, so thank you so much for joining us on another episode of the Gentle Art of Crushing It. Today, we have the pleasure of interviewing my friend Andrew Smith. So, Andrew, thank you so much for joining us. I'd love to start the show off just by asking you to tell us a little bit about yourself, how you found success as you define it, and maybe share something with us that most people wouldn't know about you.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Pleasure to be here, Doug. Have enjoyed kind of our interactions prior to this, and I'm super excited to talk with you and connect with your audience as well. So, as you said, my name's Andrew Smith. I'm the co-founder and COO of the startup business consulting firm Nourish. And so we work with entrepreneurs and small to mid-sized businesses across North America. What we say makes us different than a regular consulting firm is we don't give our clients a list of what they're doing wrong and say see you later. We actually work alongside our clients and implement the solutions that we recommend. Basically, we feel like any problem in business can be solved in one of three ways, or a combination of these three things: people, processes, and technology. And so, that's how we built our company over the last 2 years. We started in 2020. Lucas Mitchell, who's a great friend and a great, mentor and leader and, CEO of our company.
All around awesome guy.
And hopefully he'll be on and people can connect with him here in future episode.
Yes.
But yeah, so he started it in 2020, Nourish and Sow, and that's SOW, as in like sowing seeds. So a little kind of marketing play there. But we have a really awesome team of professionals who come in with all different backgrounds and help our clients build businesses. So we've worked with folks in performance coaching, live event photography, commercial and residential real estate, property management, software and technology. I mean, just kind of spin the wheel if you're a business and you need help, you find us and we'll figure it out. So it's been really fun to be on that journey so far. We'll talk more about that as we get into this piece here. Outside of work, I'm a father, husband. We've got 3 amazing kids, 11, 3, and 1. We live in a quaint, idyllic little area on the Atlantic coast in southeast Georgia. My wife actually runs her own business and is an entrepreneur, so we are in the thick of that journey, and we are all about it and consider it a blessing to kind of be running and doing our own thing after having series of W-2s that we didn't really like as much as we thought we did at the time. So that's been really fun. And then a little bit more personal background for me. I'm originally from New York. So I grew up outside of New York City, about an hour. I went to Marist College, played football there for the Red Foxes. And I graduated with a degree in sports communication and journalism. And then I have a master's in sport management from Georgia Southern. And you asked me for a fun fact. I actually wrote a sports column for about 7 years. So from when I was 22 to when I was almost 30, I wrote a sports column. So that was a lot of fun. That's my little fun fact. So even though I don't do that anymore, that's like just a little random thing I can keep in my back pocket when people ask me.
Yeah, not a bad way to spend your 20s, right?
Yeah, it was pretty fun. I did that. I was a journalist for 2 years, and then I got into higher education, and then I got into, I ran a fitness center for a little while, and then I worked at a marketing firm before I started with Nourish and Sow. So pretty wide background, which all of those things have sort of led me to where I am today, which I'm super grateful for.
Yeah, no, great spot to be in for sure. I love Nourish and So and Lucas Mitchell. Do you have any advice before I go on to the next question for budding entrepreneurs or people interested in becoming an entrepreneur?
Yeah, so I think there is, what we tell people is you can't be afraid to take a leap, but before you get to that leap, you have to take the first step. So just really start taking action. I think if you have an idea or you think you have something, like, go ahead and get it set up. Go ahead and make a website. Get those first 5 or 6 things that you think you need to do and start doing them, and you kind of like take an iterative approach and test it out. And you can't really do a whole lot without capital, so you need to make sure that you do have a business that's viable before you start putting a lot of time and effort and quit your W-2 and all that. So while you need to test it and make sure it makes sense for you, you also are gonna find at some point that you're gonna have to take a leap and believe in yourself and trust in what you're doing. That's my advice for them.
That's great advice, and it's interesting because I was talking to somebody about real estate investing, and it's obviously the same thing as you're becoming a real estate investor. If you want to become like full time, right? It's entrepreneurial. So we spend a lot of time as humans, and I shouldn't give this to everybody, but I definitely have, where I got into a research mode, then turns into analysis paralysis, and the solution for that is taking action, right? And right along with that, I wanted to say, Tony Robbins says that knowledge is not power, knowledge is potential power. Mm-hmm. Knowledge in action is power, right? So we've got to start taking steps towards our dreams at some point. Otherwise, it's not going to happen, right? Yeah,
you can only have 2 feet in 2 worlds for so long, right? And I think we find that a lot of the times with people that are in transitionary kind of entrepreneurial points in their journey anyway. And we're like, hey, I've got my W-2, I'm doing this thing that I'm really passionate about, and I don't know if I'm ready yet. And we have that conversation. I probably have that conversation once a month with somebody who's interested, whether they are, potential client of ours or just somebody that gets put in touch with us. It is very common, and there's a lot of great resources for getting you into alignment to take that action, and the confidence that you need to be able to do that, to be able to leave that W-2. How do you know for sure? You don't always know for sure. And if you're looking for 100%, then you've either got a brilliant idea or you haven't fully thought it through. And so, it does require a leap. But before you take that leap, you got to take action and make sure, that you do have something solid there, whether it's investing or an idea or a product or service, that there's something viable there.
Yeah, and I think it's just interesting. That's a great insight. And right along with that, there is nothing that's 100%. There's no 100% guarantees, even in your W-2. You just never know what the market overall is going to do, right? So you're taking a leap even if you're staying, right? Sort of like a leap by default, whether you want to look at it or not, I think. That's great. Great advice. Let me ask you this. Please, if you don't mind sharing with us one, of your more favorite successes that you accomplished in life. It could be in sports, anywhere, and sort of a valuable lesson that you learned from that.
Yeah, I think I never really considered myself like successful. That's a hard thing for me because I have pretty high standards for myself, which I'm sure a lot of successful people do. So that's an okay thing right now. But I do think over the last couple years that we've been working on Nourish, and so I've learned to be more actively reflective. So appreciating the journey more, and I think that has helped us grow and kind of spread our wings a little bit more and not be afraid to make mistakes, not be afraid to push the envelope in a positive way. And take leaps when we need to. So I'd say really, my biggest accomplishment in business and this side of life would be starting, sustaining, and growing Nourish. And so, like we said, Lucas started it in December 2020. I came on as employee 001 in February 1st of 2021, and we've really taken off from there. Lucas is a very accomplished entrepreneur in the restaurant world, and he was getting a lot of people coming up to him at conferences or calling him or messaging him for insight and direction. He was like, I think there's a business here. And so my wife was working with him at the time as his EA, and she has since started her own virtual assistant company, which he inspired her to do. So
That's awesome.
I got connected with him just through this, random, Upwork connection, how they met. And then she was like, this Lucas guy's really cool. I'm like, all right, let's do it. So
that's unreal.
Yeah. And so we have a really awesome relationship. We've never met in person, but we talk all the time, and we implicitly trust each other to do the right thing when it comes down to it. So that's been really, really cool, and something that 5 years ago would have been impossible probably to even comprehend, pre-pandemic, that kind of stuff. So
yeah, right. Well, and we shouldn't gloss over the fact that Lucas took a great leap of faith there to start Nourish and So, and in the middle of the pandemic, right? So it just goes to show that I think that there's that old saying, where there's a will, there's a way. And Lucas and your value is in you, so you could go just about anywhere. Like you said earlier, the business has to be viable, but you could take your person, right, your intelligence, your entire being, and plug it in anywhere and create success where you want it to be, right? So it's great. I love it.
Yeah, so we've been fully remote, since day one. All of our people, so I know a few of our folks that we work with as contractors, but anybody that's on our team as a full-time employee, I've never met in person. And so, building this culture has been completely, counterintuitive across the board. But we've been, I think, very successful so far as a startup. Within 2 years, we doubled our revenue from year one to year two. We've got 7 full-time employees across the U.S., and I think we're serving clients in a sustainable way. I mentioned a little bit earlier, but ultimately our goal is to set them up so they don't need us, which seems counterintuitive for like a business model. But really the best thing we can do for a client is help their business grow, fix as many problems as we can, put in as much structure and technology, for them to be successful. And then when we step away and it's the right time, we're not going to leave anybody hanging, but when it is time and they've, got the vertical integration they need to be successful, then they're just going to go say amazing things about us. And then we can do the same for more people, So it seems a little bit weird to have a business consulting firm where the ultimate goal is to have clients that are happy and don't need us. But I think that really captures a lot of what we do.
Yeah, no, 1,000%. And, as far as I know, Nourish and So is in pretty great demand, right? So
we're doing
working. Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Let me ask you this. This is a fun question. Would you mind sharing with us one of the, most difficult things you've ever been through in your life, and, what you learned from that?
Yeah, so I was thinking about that a little bit when you talked about kind of what entrepreneurs need to do when they get to that point where they probably need to do something, right? If they have an idea or they're ready to go to the next step. And I think the biggest thing is that you can't be afraid to take the leap. I worked for a lot of people throughout my career, for about 15 years of being a professional before I started with Nourish and So. And, I needed to go through those experiences, and I don't regret them because they gave me the skills and the abilities to do what I do now. But I did have to take a leap, and our family had to take a leap to join a company that didn't exist for more than 2 months. But that unlocked, I think, in me the ability to really flourish and lead in the way that I felt like I needed to. I think that there was a lot of, when you're in a W-2 job and you're working for somebody else, there's all these other standards and expectations that people have, and it can kind of really limit you from being the most effective or being the best version of yourself. And so, again, I appreciate the things that I learned but a lot of it was like learning what I don't want to do, or learning what I didn't want to be as a leader and as a manager of people. And so I think that that's probably, the biggest zoom out thing I could say without getting into the weeds on, the specific challenges or tough times that I've gone through. But I think, like I said earlier, there's going to be a point where you're not sure how it's going to turn out, but you have to bet on yourself and you have to take that chance. And so we end up having conversations, my wife and I, about, just being entrepreneurs. And I was like, I would much rather have it be in my hands for it to be successful than to rely on somebody else, or rely on a larger, greater company entity, or a business or something else that I don't have control over. However it goes, at least it's on me, and I have the control to put it in the direction that I want to do. And I've been, Lucas has been great, to allow me to figure that out and not worry about the little mistakes along the way. And so that's been really cool.
Don't sweat the small stuff.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
I wanted to touch on all of the, your W-2 experiences where you learned all the things that did not work for you. It reminds me of the, Thomas Edison story where somebody was interviewing him and, they said, don't you kind of feel like a failure? Like, you've tried 10,000 ways to make this thing happen. It hasn't worked for you. And the guy Edison said something like, you just don't understand how it works. Like, I found 10,000 ways that don't work, but essentially, as long as he didn't quit, he was going to find it. So, and he did. I mean, it's pretty incredible that he just kept moving forward. But he knew he was going to make it happen.
Yeah. I think that I didn't think about that at the time, and so a lot of times I think people can get caught in being frustrated because they don't, myself included, didn't see something beyond this job that I showed up to every day in an office. And so, I think it was a different, it just seems like everything is so different now. It's hard to go back and, think about all
Put yourself in the mindset that you were in back then.
It's completely different. Yeah. And I know we'll touch on mindset too, because that's a big part of what pushes us forward here as entrepreneurs and people that are driving, the industry forward in whatever industry we're in. You have to be willing to be on the leading edge and then not bat 1,000. But I think, a lot of good experiences. So I worked at a college, which was really cool, and got to interact and do a lot of different things. So what I would say, I guess, was the biggest thing I did along the way was I was never scared to change a career, right? So when I told you the different jobs I have, I was like, okay, cool. I think I can do it. And I bet on myself in that way, but it was never in the way that you do in an entrepreneurial environment. But I knew that I had the skill set, and then I had the confidence, and then I learned what I needed to do to be successful at that job. And I didn't, whatever job it was at the time, and I didn't give up. And so that is for sure something that I learned through sports growing up. And then obviously, leadership, being captains on my teams when I was little and in high school, and then playing college football. One of the biggest things I always end up bringing up about college, we were okay. We had some good years. We had some years we weren't great where I went to school, but it wasn't about that. It was about building the relationships with my teammates, working hard in the off season. When you play football, you got 12 games in a season. They're 60 minutes long in college, running time. And the rest of the entire year, you are practicing, or you are working out, or you are in the film room, or you're, trying to make ends meet. I worked 2 jobs in college and had a full class load and, still played ball. And so it was just this type of thing that it wasn't about showing up on Saturday, because everybody's going to be there dressed on Saturday. It was about showing up, consistently on all the other days.
For years.
Literally, years. Yeah. So I think that drove me into my W-2s and made me a good employee, made me a good leader, whether or not I was in a management role. I tell my team, I told kids that used to work for me in different positions, like, leadership is not a title. Leadership is who you are. It's more about how you carry yourself and what you do. And the example that you said, it's not whether you're director of, such and such manager. You can be a coordinator level, you can be entry level, and you can still provide leadership to an organization.
Great
just
point.
by your approach,
Yeah, you always have the opportunity to impact your team, right? That's a great point. I also wanted to touch on something. I think that you basically were saying is that when you're playing football in college, that essentially the wins and losses is not the huge benefit that you got from it, or you could say it wasn't really about winning. Ultimately, if you look back, would you agree with the statement that it was about the character that was built, the character that you built inside of you during that time?
Right. And I think, the glory of athletics ends at some point, right? Everybody retires. I knew out of high school I wasn't going to play in the NFL, so I had a finite amount of time to put in everything I had for it. But when it came to an end, it came to an end. And so I think that having that perspective and not allowing the highs and lows to affect you in a negative or too much of a way. My coach, who's been at my college for almost 30 years now, probably, and was there for, it might be even longer than that. Anyway, he's been there for a long time, and he's still there today. And he always said, when we watch film on Sundays, whether we won or we lost, it's never as good as it seems. It's never as bad as it seems. You lose 40-14. Okay, we still got 14 points. Like, what are the things that we did well? How close were we to being even more successful than we were? And even if the score is reversed and you blow somebody out, okay, we didn't score on every play, or the defense gave up a couple of yards or some touchdowns. Like, no matter what, there's something to take from a loss. There's something to take from a win, and to improve and move forward into the next thing, that whatever it is, whether it's the end of the season and in the next year or the next week, because you got to dust yourself off however it happened, and do your Sunday workout and take Monday off, and then come back to practice the next week. And so it's just that kind of constant resetting that is required to, like, taking the good things with you, putting the negativity behind you and moving on, so you can, because you got a game next Saturday and you better get ready for it.
Mm-hmm. There's always room for improvement, right? So yeah, that's great. Sports is a great teacher of life. So I love that.
Yeah, I always have to apologize to my team for making sports analogies, because some of them didn't play sports, and so I'm like, all right, sports analogy time. I'm sorry, this is how I think, and they get a kick out of it.
Yeah, no, it's a good thing, and it also, I think, businesses are a lot like sports. You have a team, you have a team leader, and coaches, and it's definitely helpful. Let me shift the conversation a little bit and ask you this fun question: if you were to go back in time, taking what you know now with you to age 18, what would you do to fast track your success again as you define it?
Yeah. I was thinking about this a little bit. One of the things that I probably didn't do, like, I only ever thought about that first job that I wanted to have, that I thought I wanted to do, which was to be a sports writer. And it was fun, it was awesome, definitely not as lucrative as you think it should be. I exited college at the the 07, 08, housing crisis, recession, and all that. So that was a tough time to be in the job market. But I think that beyond that, I never really had like a plan or really big aspirations. And it took me a while to figure that out, really, until I came to Nourish. And so it was always like, okay, what's this next job? I sort of didn't dream big enough. And I think that was a real, it brought me to where I am today. And it took me a long time to think about that and to kind of put on that entrepreneurial, cap and say, okay, I am actually in control. and I can be in control of my future and my experience, and not just, showing up to a job and doing a good job, but like, okay, where is this taking me? What am I doing? Am I actually following my dreams and the path that I want to be on, as opposed to just like, okay, I'm only looking for this next better job, as opposed to like, what's that bigger goal that I'm trying to reach? And now we do that, for the company, all the time. And for other ones, other clients that we work with, the first thing that we do when we work with them is have them cast their vision for their business. And without that, you can't do anything successfully, because you're just going to be spinning your wheels and trying different stuff, and it's not going to work because there's no end goal or no big, long-term or even short-term goal in mind. So I think I didn't do a great job of that, and that's probably the biggest thing that I would say I would tell myself at 18, like, think more about where you want to go, and the how you get there will kind of, figure itself out, but dream a little bit bigger, I think.
Yeah, and would it be fair to say, dream bigger, go bigger, plan bigger with more clarity even?
I think so. I think that those are the next steps, right? And I always, I'm really good at that, right? As COO, like, I am the details guy. And so that wasn't my distinct problem, but yes, those are the next steps, right? I think you hit it right on the head. You have the big goal, and then you kind of work backwards from that and say, okay, I want to be here in 5 years. I need to do this, right? I want to be here in 3 years, so then I need to do these things. Those types of activities have always come very naturally to me, just how I'm built. And
that's cool.
That wasn't the problem. It was like making a big enough dream in the first place was where I struggled.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. Do you have any tools when it comes time to cast a vision that you recommend?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So with Nourish, so we actually do have a just kind of a vision template that we use for our clients.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. That was one of the first things that we did for ourselves, and then for our first several clients, and just kind of give it to everybody now. So if anybody wants, access that, we don't have it on our website. We have a couple of other resources on our website, but they can just reach out to me, on LinkedIn, or we'll talk about kind of how to connect with that. But I'm happy to hand that out and give that to them. And we're also going to be hosting a entrepreneur course in January, and that'll be part of one of the things that we'll give to folks first in the first couple of weeks. It'll be a 6-week course that we're going to do in January 23. So if you miss it, we'll have another one later in 2023. But happy to distribute that. And that's really what we use. So we talk about, what is it, businesses need to be separate from the entrepreneur. That's one thing that we've learned along the way. The entrepreneur is not the business is not the entrepreneur. And if they are, then they don't sleep very well. They have a lot of stress in their lives. So it needs to exist as its own entity in like a real way. And so, we start with kind of how do people feel about it? How does it feel to be an owner? How does it feel to work there? What is the client perspective or the external perceptions of it?
Like culture, right?
Yeah. And then what's the internal culture? How do we operate? What systems do we use? And what I say is like, just dream big, put it out there. Like, hey, I want to make $10 million next year. Great. Let's figure out how to do that. What's the easiest or what's the best way to do those things? And so, that's really, really where we start for that. And it's been some people can do it better than others. Some people are like, yeah, let's go. And some people are more like me, like, ooh, I'm scared of that. Yeah, it is scary.
Yeah.
And so we work with them to flesh that out. So, our basic document that we use is just bullet points. Like, hey, put it out there. We've got copywriters. I've got, experience doing that, obviously, as well. And so we craft it and do a couple versions, and then we'll design it. And then they can put it up in their office and, put it up if they have a physical location, or mail it to their team and get that on the wall so people have something that they can sink their teeth into on a daily basis. Because not only does the entrepreneur need it, but the people that work for and with them need it as well. And so it's a really key piece to getting started.
Yeah, I mean, I love it. I find this like really, really inspiring, and definitely want access to that template, and I definitely want to, be on the mailing list for the event coming up in January. It's awesome. The world needs it, and I think I'm similar where taking a leap into entrepreneurship is scary, and I think the main reason for that is my comfort zone. It really doesn't have a whole lot to do with like failing or whatever, because I think we can kind of define failing in a lot of different ways, but every single day we're failing in a lot of ways if we want to define all these little, so it's like, again, kind of talking about mindset and where do we want to be. And I think just with our life and with our definitions and our perspective, we need to be setting ourselves up in a way that supports us. And so, I think one last, thing on failure is we can make it as big as we want to, a massive, Mount St. Helens or huge mountain, or we can make it as small as we want to. Really, it's the power is up to us. So I think it is great what you all are doing, though, and I really love that you start with the vision.
Yeah. To your point, on failure, I think that was one of the big things that sort of unlocked for me early on at Nourish and So, was just how Lucas approached that, and how I think we approach it now is just really taking an iterative approach. Like no one is batting 1,000 in business, in life. No one goes through it mistake free. And so if you hold things too closely and everything is so precious that you cannot make a mistake, knowing that you're definitely going to make a mistake at some point, then everything comes crashing down when you make one mistake, right? And so if you take more of an iterative approach, which basically means like, hey, we're going to put out version 1.0, and after we do that, we're going to be working on 2.0 and 3.0 and 4.0. And we're not going to stop, but we have to put something out there knowing that we're going to make mistakes and we're going to improve it. But when you can get into a point where mistakes are expected and everything, the house of cards doesn't come falling down when one thing, doesn't go exactly how you want it to, that's where creativity, innovation can really thrive, and you can come up with truly the best solution for the long term, knowing that, hey, we're going to try this thing, we're going to test it out, this is what we think is going to work right now, but markets are going to change, the clients are going to change, different things that are well beyond our control are not going to be the same next week or next year or 10 years from now. And so knowing that change is a constant and mistakes are going to happen, how can you reduce, like this preciousness that people hold on their ideas and the things that they want? It doesn't make them any less important. It just makes that, that tightrope turn into a balance beam, turn into a wide mat, turn into a roadway. It allows you more leeway to go do the thing and do it well and do it with passion, as opposed to being so scared to make a mistake.
Yeah, to get them a little bit more, to get us, a little bit more acclimated with risk, right? There's something that Brian Tracy says, I think he said it, is fail forward fast, right? So fail forward on towards your, hitting your goals. But I also love, the truth that nobody bats 1,000. If you're batting 300, you're doing excellent, right? So it's great to keep it in perspective.
Yeah. And if you feel like your business is batting 1,000, if anybody's running that there, and you don't have any problems, then you're not pushing hard enough, right? Then
Time
you're
to
too
grow.
Comfortable. Yeah, it's time to grow.
Yeah, if you're at the gym curling 10 pounds, for years on end and just feeling like you're crushing it, you gotta pick up heavier weights,
right? Yeah.
Even start small, right? Exactly. Maybe go 12s first and then 15s or whatever. But no, it's great. Let me ask this: what are your thoughts on mindset? And how to go from a non-success mindset or a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset or a success mindset?
Yeah, mindset is huge. I did not give it enough credit when I was in my little W-2 box and didn't even really think about it, and then got into this entrepreneurial world. And obviously, one of our long standing clients is Jason Dries, who's a performance coach, and I recommend everybody check out his stuff on social media, and his website, and his programs are amazing. We've been really involved
Absolutely.
in those, and so just through sheer osmosis, I learned about it and really unlocked a lot of stuff. Worked with him on his book to get that out there, his first book, and he's got another
Great
one he's
book.
working on now too. And so, just being immersed in that was huge eye opener for me. And then I also, obviously, I have a performance coach now, one-on-one coach, and that, it wasn't, like I was saying before, it wasn't that I didn't have the tools to do it. I just wasn't thinking about it in the right way, and putting, reframing things and putting them in this, kind of a more positive light, and not, again, letting risk or fear shut down the potential that I or my business or anything has, because that's really what limits people. It's not what's on the inside, it's like the external factors that they allow to affect them. And so mindset just kind of, it doesn't disregard those things, and it doesn't, which I kind of felt like it before I was familiar with it. That's how I viewed it. Like, you just think things don't matter. Like, yeah, but if you come at things in a positive way with a clarity of purpose and a clarity of like where you're going to go, there's nothing that's going to stop you, right? And so it doesn't disregard the negativity, but it puts it in its place and allows you to work through it, but not have it hinder you for the growth that your potential allows.
Yeah, and I think I couldn't agree more. And it is so important that if you haven't started looking into mindset and success and abundance mindset, that you get started right away. You can never stop working on it, and even as you work at it for quite a while, you're going to notice stuff pop up. Like, for example, if I freak out, over money, I can get freaked out and I could change my entire life, going in the wrong direction over money. Or I can say, okay, so that, repair, for example, in the automobile was $3,000. No big deal. I can go create $10,000, right? And so, or replace that $3,000. It's just not a big deal, because it's so. How you're looking at it is one way that I've found to, really have help in understanding like mindset, because people throw it out there, but basically what we're saying typically when we use the word mindset is like a growth, expansive, success, abundance, like appreciative mindset, and that's kind of the perspective that we're working from. Like you said a minute ago, we literally can accomplish anything, So, and humans are amazing.
Yeah, and I think to just unlocking it and know that like what I would say to people is like, you already have everything that you need to be successful and to be what you want to be. You just need to tap into it.
Yeah, yes, sir. Yeah, and that's another, to touch on Jason Dries, he talks about, he doesn't create successful people. He helps them remove their resistance towards success, or unblock, or, and, so that's a great segue into this next question that I have for you. So, which is, if there was a key in your life that, unlocked or helped you to unlock success in your life, what would you say that is?
Mm-hmm. I think one of them was just kind of the iterative approach, and just like the freedom to, expand and grow and make mistakes, and not be, have your feet to the fire in such a crazy way that it actually would make you even more prone to mistakes. So I think that was probably one. The second thing, we're big into DISC, which is a personality assessment. And I suggest everybody check it out. I didn't know anything about it until we started working with Nourish. And the first one I took was like, and it's still the same. I've taken it again. It's dead on, right? So, dominant, stability, and then compliance, and then I can be. What do you remember? What I is, Doug?
I don't. I'm sorry.
Here, I'll talk. We'll hit the reset button on here. On
there
this
we
part
go.
when we'll edit it.
Yeah. what I will say is like, yeah, disc is great at showing your strengths, and then also areas that where you can, improve yourself, and anybody can, and it's a great like reflection.
Yeah. Well, let me reset that question again. So,
Yeah.
we were talking about just kind of
About the
things that
disc.
unlocked my mind. So I would say DISC is probably one of the biggest things. It's a personality assessment if you're not familiar with it. And so it stands for dominance, influence, conscientiousness or compliance, and then stability or steadiness for the S. So a couple different, representations of what the acronym means, but essentially the same thing. And so I'm a high D. I like to be in charge, like to be in control. I'm conscientious, I'm thoughtful, compliant. So my C is very high. I'm very steady. We're talking about showing up every day, having really good effort. But my influence is a little bit lower than, you might think it would be. And so, somebody more
yeah,
like
because
Lucas,
a lot of times if you have a high D, you have a high I, right? And then
Right,
the other way, if
and
you have a high
that's-
S, you have a high C.
Right. And so I have the system that we use gives you like a title, right, for it. So we have like architect and innovator and administrator. And so it gives you these, it's like a 17-page report. Mine came back as director. So I'm the COO now of our company. But when I started, I was the director of operations. Could not have been more head on. And so that allowed me to really think about, okay, like how can I be most successful based on how I am? Because a lot of times in previous roles I was trying to change, or people are trying to fit me into this box. Like, I don't want to be in a box. I want to be me. And then how can I be the best version of me, not just for the company, but for the team that I interact with, and be in the seat that I need to be in. And then also understanding other people's profiles and their personalities and how I can position them to be successful as well. And so that just kind of unlocked a lot for me. Understanding myself, and then also applying it. So everybody that comes into our company and anybody that we do hiring for, we want them to take a DISC because that tells us a lot. It's one of many factors that we use, but it is really important for us, both individually and as a company, for what we do. And so that's been really instrumental in just kind of allowing me to be me, and then also interacting more effectively with other people based on what their profiles are and how they're built.
Yeah, I was just going to say, because they're also really helpful in communicating and knowing how people communicate, right? So it is a great tool. I really like it. Well, we're getting close to wrapping the show up. Again, thank you so much, Andrew. This has been a really, really fun conversation, getting to know you more, but also what y'all are doing at Nourish, and so is exciting. I just see a lot of success for Nourish, and so in the future. Plus, like, I know Lucas, and he's a crazy, amazing human being, as are you. And with that being said, as we're wrapping up, please share with us one book recommendation, or it could be many books if you want, and one tech recommendation, some whatever that you find helpful.
Awesome. Well, one book I have been, I got it from a friend of mine who I used to work with, and we have a little group of guys who are actually doing different stuff than we were when we worked together, and 3 of the 4 of us are now kind of on our own doing entrepreneurial type things, which is really cool. So he bought this book and brought it to us. We eat at a pizza shop here locally once a month, or taco place or wherever. But anyway, one time he brought it, and it really hit. Yeah. It really hit me. Because it spoke to my background so much. It's called Range. It's by this author named David Epstein. And so basically the book is about how generalists can thrive in a specialized world. So it talks a lot about chess players that play chess from a very young age, and all they do is play chess, but then they can't really do anything else. Tiger Woods hit 10,000 hours of golf before he was 8. And it was very specialized, and we know his journey and his story. But I think that they talked about somebody like Roger Federer, who actually played soccer till he was 15 and did all this stuff, and equally as successful, right? One of the all-time most successful
pro tennis player, right?
Pro tennis player, but he played a bunch of different sports along the way, and so
it's cool.
I use it to kind of empower myself and then also understand like, hey, I can take my diverse background and apply it to these things that maybe don't really connect on paper, but do because of the skill set that was able to be built along the way. So it's really about like, I think for people that are listening, can be really good to say, hey, I've been in, this type of business and I want to get in another type of business. Well, okay, you probably got some skills that are transferable, dig into that and understand that, because you have multiple skill sets, and especially in today's world, like changing careers and, doing different stuff, over the course of my 15-year career, I had like 5 different careers. And so I never felt inadequate at any point, but it was just like, okay, stacking skills, using this stuff to be really, really good in this role that I'm in now. So that would be my book recommendation.
Can I interject something there real quick? Because, I don't know, a couple years back, I was seeing a therapist and she labeled me as multi-passionate. And so there's almost a stigma, I think, and maybe I'm wrong about this, but when you don't specialize in something, you almost feel like you can't be good at anything, right? Because it's the old saying, jack of all trades, ace of none.
Master of none.
Master of none. And so that book sounds like excellent for people that are like me, multi-passionate or more of like a generalist, So I'm looking forward. I'm going to get that on Audible like immediately.
Yeah, it's really good. And I love
Great.
That ethos because there's, even from, youth sports to you got to study this in college. Like I have 2 degrees in sports related fields. And I know that there's a lot of parallels, but if I went and applied to a big company, they'd be like, well, who's this joker? What are you going to do with your sports communication degree for us? And now I'm, running a company. It doesn't matter necessarily as much as you think it does. So it's all about who you are and how you stack your skills and how you can apply them and, take everything forward into the direction that you want to go. So yeah, it's a really, really cool book. As far as technology, a lot of people end up talking to us about CRMs. Those are really big, so I'll focus on that. I'd say if you're just getting started and you don't have any clear direction on, a specific one that somebody would recommend for your industry, Monday.com is good for that. Seat licenses are pretty low cost, and you can basically make it do anything you want to do. They have really, really good resources and a lot of really good templates. So even if you're not super technical and you don't have a technology team like I do, who I defer much of those things to,
must be nice.
Then it's a beautiful thing. But I think that's a really good starter. It can be a CRM, it can be project management, workflow, social media stuff. You can connect a lot of things to it. It's got good integrations and open API. So I think that's a really good starter one. We recommend that kind of to clients and help them get started. If they get more specific or they're more kind of service related, we actually have been using Zoho a lot, and Zoho's good because it's got a good base platform, very good support. It's a program, out of India, but they're huge now, and so they have a lot of really good add-ons and different, components in the open API. That's what we look for, right? If you have a piece of technology that has no API, which means, what are those endpoints that can connect to other pieces of technology? It's basically useless to us. Like, okay, yeah, great, I'm glad it looks good and works well for this one thing that it does, but if it can't connect to other pieces of technology, it's basically useless to us.
Yeah, so in other words, if it doesn't have an API, it can't integrate to like a text messaging platform, for example, right?
Potentially, or a video source, or anything. And so that's what our dev team, if we bring something to them and it's like, hey, this client has this, and like, okay, does it have an API? And it's like, no, and they're like, okay. So they're just not super thrilled about it.
Making their job harder, right?
Yeah. But Zoho has a lot of good kind of sub categories. So they have, surveys, they have a billing feature, so you can invoice from there, and it allows you to kind of have everything in one main piece of technology. And so we've been using that more for some of our more complex clients, where we can make it do a lot of different stuff, and it's just a little bit more robust than Monday is overall. So those would be my two recommendations based on where you're at. But we do, that kind of consulting too. So somebody says, hey, I need to make a decision, they can just go to our website, book a call with me, and I can kind of walk them through it and talk about what their options are. Always happy to do that, and just give some advice when people need it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Great. I love it. Again, thanks for joining me here, Andrew. How can our audience support you, and connect with you? And if they're interested in Nourish and Sew, I'll have a link to that. But like you said a minute ago, you can book a call through that website.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the biggest thing that they can do is just kind of go to our primary, company website, nourishandsew.com, and that's, Nourish, normal spelling, ampersand when we write our name, but in the address it's AND and then SOW.com. Follow us on social media. You can get access to everything from there. So we've got a couple of free resources on our website. Definitely want people to book a call if they have questions about anything and want to see if they're a good fit for working with us and vice versa. And then also our newsletter, we try and put out really meaningful stuff. We have a really great open rate. We just do it once a month and give people like the meatiest and briefest stuff that we can, knowing that everybody's busy.
Meatiest and briefiest.
Yes. Quote me on that.
Right.
And then we, like I said earlier, we are hosting an Entrepreneur 6-week course that will be delivered live starting in January of 2023. We're calling that the Freedom Driven Entrepreneur, to help people that are starting out not get caught in that entrepreneurial kind of rat race where the business runs you don't run the business. And so we know that there are thousands of businesses that start every day and people taking that leap, and we just want to help folks that maybe aren't quite far enough along to be our clients, but we want to connect with them. We want to give our resources and give our knowledge and pass that on so we can have more creative and successful businesses out there. So that will be available on our site. That's, like I said, going to start in 2023. And if people miss that, they can go ahead and join for the next one that we'll have probably in the summer and the fall. The other thing that's very exciting that Lucas and his wife and me and my wife are starting, along with a couple members of our team, is called the Sew Collective. So a lot of times entrepreneur communities are either focused on men or women or young people or, however you want to splice it. There's not a lot of resources out there for entrepreneurial families, right? It is a different game when there is no punch clock. You don't always get to leave work at work. And, there's a lot of different challenges that come with that. And so we've experienced those, and we want to connect with other people that are going through that. So we're calling that the Sew Collective, SOW, again, collective. And you can go to that website, sewcollective.com. It's free to join the community. There's a little application to just kind of fill out to make sure people are actually entrepreneurs and have families and want to grow and connect and contribute. And we'll have resources and different groups that are aligned with, maybe a wife or a mom's group, or different, whatever partner anybody has. Being an entrepreneur and then being the partner of an entrepreneur are two distinctly different things, and we want to be, kind of bring those things closer together and allow people to connect in a real way, even though, it's a different type of environment. And so, super excited about that, and people can go there and check that out. And then we'll hopefully have an in-person event sometime in 2023 where we can all get together at a really cool location and celebrate and share and hang out.
Yeah, that's great.
Yep.
And it's interesting because I get to talk to a lot of entrepreneurs that are an entrepreneurial family, and exactly like you said, you don't punch out. So, how do you handle all this? And I think that this is a very, necessary and needed resource in the marketplace in the world. So I'm excited to see what comes from that. And
it's just getting started, and we love for people to help us grow it. And, we don't want to, we want it to be its own thing and have its own group of living, breathing, experience that it is on its own without just us being the tip of the spear on it. So
awesome. And I think earlier
Great.
you mentioned your LinkedIn. Do you want to share with us LinkedIn, or is that the
yeah,
best way to
sure.
connect
So
with you?
that's a really easy way. So it's linkedin.com Andrew Smith 2282, my high school football number, my college football number. So and
you
I'll
have to
put
keep
that.
it.
I'll make sure that's with you. So in the notes and stuff, people can find me there. That's a really easy way to connect with me on a one-on-one level.
Yeah, we'll absolutely have that there. And, thank you so much again, Andrew, for joining us, and just excited to continue to watch Nourish and succeed. And, so again, thank you so much for joining us and really appreciate your time. With that being said, we're going to go ahead and sign out for another episode of The Gentle Art of Crushing It. Thank you all for listening and watching.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Another episode of The Gentle Art of Crushing It. It was an amazing episode. We know we sure learned a lot, and we hope you did as well. We want to take a second and thank you so much for viewing or listening to this episode. And please just know that we only ask for one favor, and that is to make this life magnificent. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.